Hi there, welcome. Let's talk Martin Heidegger. Let's do the four basic concepts of Heidegger. And we can call this kind of like how do you introduce yourself to Martin Heidegger? And I know what you're thinking. Martin Heidegger was a Nazi, right? Well, yeah, he was. He was part of the Nazi party. However, he had some incredible ideas that are extremely practical to some of the paradigms and predicaments we find ourselves in. So, one of the things we do here in America, despite what people think, is we take the good things of various cultures, good and bad, we take their good things, we leave their bad things. So, that's what we're doing here with Martin Heidegger. So, we're going to talk about four things. We're going to talk about ready to hand, present at hand, ontology, and enframing, which is critically important. So, let's get into it. So, imagine you are a carpenter, or maybe you're building a house. Okay, you've got a hammer. All right, this is the most basic Heideggerian concept that is talked about in his books, but also in the people who talk about Heidegger. So you've got a hammer, right? Ready to hand is when you've got the hammer right here, and you're just hammering. You're not thinking about the hammering. Okay, you're hammering that nail into the wood. You're what's that account that is building all these Prometheus statues or these massive statues, Atelier Misor or something. I don't know what they're called. I apologize for mispronouncing. They're just sculpting. They're just going. They're building. They're trying to bring this like really monumental historical framework with their statues to society to help people remember who they are. They're just we're going to make these statues. We're going to help people remember who they are, right? But then, boom! Like the hammer they're using breaks. Okay, the hammerhead is on the ground. I've got the grip right here. The hammerhead's on the ground. That's present at hand. So ready at hand, you're just hammering away instinctively, almost like a Nietzsche will to power. Intuition, you're just going. You're just going. Present at hand, the hammerhead is now on the ground. It's broken off of the grip. The grip's in your hand, and now you're aware of the properties of the hammer. So the hammer has this metal hammerhead, and you've got this grip in your hand, and it's separated. And now you can no longer make that cool statue. You can no longer, hammer that home, that carpentry that you're doing. You can no longer hammer that nail into the wood paneling on the side of your home. So you're aware of these properties, and you're no longer able to do useful, practical things with that tool. And so now you're trying to figure out how to either get that hammer back together so you can get back to ready hand, you're hammering away, just doing stuff, just making things happen, which is where we want to be, technically. So you start to be aware and you analyze these pieces, and then you're like, oh, maybe this tool no longer works. So we're doing some introspecting here. Mark Andreessen would be very unhappy. He doesn't want any introspection. But introspection in terms of present hand is important to understand. Do we need to remake the hammer to what it once was? Do we need to build a bigger hammer, like just giant? We're just smashing things. Or do we want to build multiple hammers? Do we need more hammers? Do we need to build something completely different? Maybe we were hauling stuff, and now we're like, we need machinery. We need a caterpillar to start to really haul bunches of stuff. So think about it that way. Ready to hand, you're instinctively going. Present at hand, the hammerhead is on the floor. The grip is in your hand, it's broken, you're aware of it, and now you have to figure out how to fix it. How do I get back to the ready at hand, to working, to being useful? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to go too into depth about all this, but in the future we'll talk more. Now, let's go ontology. Now, ontology, just think of it as like an atlas, okay? It's your map, all right? It can be a map for anything. People talk about it as ontology as like this fundamental map of being, but it can be a map of anything. Like Ontology is the map of anything, okay? You're making an atlas, you're documenting all the different objects, and this is how it turns into ready at hand and present at hand mapping. So the best example, let's talk about Excel, okay? You're putting a bunch of data in Excel. You've got all this data, all types of things. Maybe you're doing stocks. You're analyzing stocks. You're analyzing the price to earnings ratio, all these different things. But then you have too many lines, too much data. Excel breaks. You don't have enough memory on your computer. Oh my God. Well, now this is going to make some people very unhappy who are not fans of Palantir. But guess what? Excel's broken. The solution to too much data, the solution to connecting disparate pieces of data is this new technology called Palantir, who uses a digital ontology to map the things that are ready at hand and present at hand. So ontology is mapping. It's an atlas, and you're mapping the various pieces of you, of your being, or you're mapping your organization, and you're mapping the things that are ready at hand and present at hand. So the ready at hand things, now you can see what's working. Ready at hand just means, oh, it's working. This is great. We like things that are working. The same way in America we like things that are working. We take the good, the working things. So the working things, now we know what's working. That's great. That's fantastic. Now there's the present at hand things over here that we find too in the ontology. We're mapping the ontology, right? And the present at hand things, they're not working, but we know the pieces of the present at hand objects, whether it's an object or it's a being, a person, some whatever. It could be anything. We can see that the present at hand thing that we've mapped in our digital ontology, or we've mapped ourselves outside of a digital ontology like Palantir, we can see that it's not working because nothing's happening, but we know that, oh, well, it's not working because the hammerhead's on the floor and the grip's in my hand. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's go to enframing. The final thing. Enframing is this kind of, it's this Heideggerian concept where Martin Heidegger posits, or he almost prophesizes that technology is this like world view or this almost world encompassing thing that obliterates our purpose. So humanity is so used to having like a working purpose, something we're working towards every day, something that when we wake up, we go into our job or we have family, all these various things that we do, right? And so he posits that technology, or like the TV, when you watch the TV, you're like being connected to the rest of the world through news or something. And he says that kind of like obliterates our purpose and almost connects everyone in a way that's overwhelming. And now you're seeing it in AI where it's like people feel like they're losing, they feel, that's the main thing. They feel like they're losing their purpose, or something may take away their job, or they don't know what the future is going to look like. And it's causing this crisis of purpose, so to speak, because Heidegger believed that technology would enframe us inside of its kind of like overall world encompassing view. And we would forget who we are and how we interact in the world, and also how to just be. So the enframing is this kind of warning against like, how do we figure out how to be in a world where technology is able to do the things that we used to do that gave us purpose. And so what I'm interested in there, and what I'd like you to think about, hopefully all of this made sense, and if it doesn't, you can tell me, I like this, I don't like this, can you explain this more, and maybe I'll try to answer your questions in the chat or the comments. But what I'm interested in the framing, how do we flip the enframing on its head? How do we say, okay, we're going to enframe the AI, we're going to enframe the technology that we're building inside of our paradigm, inside of our goals, inside of our like future, instead of it in doing that to us. And I think people are forgetting about that. We're in control, okay? This is somewhat of a letter. Well, first off, this is first and foremost just a quick basic lesson in the 4 concepts of Heidegger to get you introduced to him. Because there's a fundamental misconception that he is anti-technology, which is not the case. He just predicts that, it's possible we may lose our sense of being and our sense of purpose because of technology. But there, in and of itself, is also the opportunity to create something better and frame the technology inside of our paradigm. So he's actually a technologist and he supports it, but he's wary that it's like two sides of the same coin. So you could go, it's like 50-50 depending on how we do it. Maybe it's not good, but it could be great. But also this is a little bit, I'd like our AI people, our AI labs to really start thinking about this. Our philosophers who aren't really philosophers in the 21st century, we basically have one. They're not doing a very good job of encompassing all sorts of subjects, synthesizing them under, one umbrella inside of the AI and trying to frame it under our will and, kind of what our goals are. It's kind of like, oh my God, we're all going to lose our jobs. It's very nihilistic. And I think you guys really need to figure out how to not do that, okay? And then talk to the public about how you're going to help them use AI in a way that gives them superpowers, which is also another thing that Palantir has done. They're training people to do this. And so as much as, you may hate what they're doing, or, you're seeing media headlines, you're not reading articles, but you're seeing headlines where it's like, oh, well, Palantir is doing this and that. But Palantir is the only one who's actually training people to use AI in an effective manner. So how do we do that on a broader scale? I think this is something OpenAI needs to think about, Anthropic needs to think about. XAI, Elon has a better perspective than most of the AI labs. So, it's clear to see that Elon is basically a Heideggerian from his first principles thinking, which is just Heideggerian thinking. But he started later with his AI lab. But he has a great mindset on it. It's like, we're looking for truth, curiosity. We're trying to figure out the fundamental questions of the universe. How do we enframe the AI inside of that paradigm? Elon has the best perspective in unison with Palantir. And I know people don't like to hear that, but that is what's happening. So, would love to hear what you think. We're going to expand on these concepts. This is just a really basic insight, a basic introduction to Martin Heidegger, but I have a lot more to say. Okay, this is going to be fun.